everyone. Welcome to the channel. We've got a really awesome video here today. We're going to be interviewing the writer of lots of different things like many Spider-Verse stories, Black Cat, Taskmaster, and the new Magic the Gathering series from Boom Studios. Today we have Jed Mackay with us. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Awesome.
Very happy to have you on.
Yeah, super
Thanks for having
excited.
me. I'm always excited to talk about comic books.
All right. So, so just a quick background of how did you get into comics? Like, do you remember the first comic book you read, or did you read it when you were a little kid, or is this kind of new to you and you were kind of found it when you were an adult?
I mean, I came up on comics. I'm pretty sure I probably learned to read on them. Like
Oh, nice.
when I was really small, I was reading Tintin comics, the old Gladstone, Donald Duck, and Uncle Scrooge stuff, like Karl Barks and
Nice.
Don Rosa, and it just kind of went from there. Graduated, but moved from there to my dad's old collection of comics. So he had boxes and boxes of comics from the 70s up through the 80s, and then just gradually kind of kept moving on through there. So comics, I've always been around them, always been reading them, and
Nice.
it turned out that eventually they'd let me make them.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so with that, what made you want to start writing, and how did you do that? And maybe some people that influenced you specifically.
Um, as far as writing, my original sort of goal wasn't to just be a writer. I got really into sort of indie creator-owned stuff when I was just finishing up high school, getting into university, and that was also the point in time where I started to see how the internet was letting young creators create books. Even sometimes just stuff that you'd see on websites. It was the age where message boards and forums were
Yeah.
sort of the social media that existed that was used by artists and creators in those days. So I'd see a lot of people coming up, really hungry, wanting to make their own comics. It was really exciting. And at that point in time, I thought I was going to also draw my own comics. It became apparent pretty quickly that I couldn't do it well enough or fast enough
Yeah.
to get that done. So I'd hooked up on the message boards with a friend of mine, Sheldon Bella, who is an artist out of Australia. It was on the Enter Void message board where see a lot of current pros kind of came out of. James Stokoe and Marley Zarkon came up from there.
Oh, cool.
Sheldon himself, Lucio Cervela Santos. It was a real murderer's row of talent there. And so Sheldon and I hooked up. And we just started making these really kind of crass, horrible comics for fun, like you do when you're in your early 20s and don't really have any good sense. And then eventually Marvel tapped Sheldon to start doing some work for them, and then he brought me in to write a story for him because he's like, I don't actually know anything about these superheroes, so you want to get in on this? And I'm like, yeah, shit, let's do it. So yeah, and it just kind of went from there. That was our first story we did was like 10 years ago, so it was like 2010.
Oh, wow.
Was a Dazzler and Daughters of the Dragon team up, and then I didn't really get any regular work or a story longer than 8 pages for like 8 years later. So we kind of broke in, and then had a real dry spell before Edge of Spider-Geddon 1 came out, and then Daughters of the Dragon, etc.
Yeah.
So speaking of Spider-Geddon, you worked on a lot of Spider-Verse stories. What is it like writing these alternative universe versions like Spider-Punk and Spider-Geddon and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You're taking really familiar touchstones and then spinning them around, twisting them, figuring out how they're going to be different. With the Spider-Punk character, basically the job was, Nick, the editor, said, we've got this character, we don't know anything about him, give us a little backstory in 8 pages. So we did our the story that Sheldon and I did. We gave him a secret identity, which is Hobie Brown. We built the world up for him. We talked a little bit about the different versions of characters that exist in the world, and it's it's a fun opportunity to kind of, flex your muscles creatively and try to come up with something that's, new and interesting and,
Yeah.
well, hopefully interesting. And, just try to make your mark a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, because there's like the Spider-Man character that everybody knows, and then there's all these different alternate versions. So it's like trying kind of having to figure that out without like getting the fans mad at you would probably be a interesting thing to figure out.
I mean, one of the things in comics you got to realize is that pretty much anything you're going to do is going to get some of the fans mad at you. But
Yeah,
it's just more about damage control at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's interesting to try and take a new spin on a character in a way that people will like, because a lot of characters came out of Spider-Verse. There, some were really successful, some were not so successful. It is what it is. Like that's what you're going to get when you have that many new characters or new versions of characters introduced in an event. And our Hobie Brown Spider-Man seemed to be one of the more successful ones. I mean, we're not talking like Spider-Gwen or anything here, but he was in a couple video games. That's good enough for us.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, that's definitely cool.
Yeah, so you wrote the first Black Cat series from 2019 to 2020, I think it was, and you're currently writing the latest series. So it seems, is this like one of your favorite characters, and like what do you enjoy writing about her?
Yeah, I mean it's the same series. Like it's the same continuity, it's the same story we're working on here. It's just it was COVID friggery going on, and whenever they can make something a new number one, they'll go for it.
Yeah, they'll take it.
Yeah, but it's funny that Black Cat, Felicia was never a character that I really cared too much about before I got the job. She's just one of the characters that was there.
Yeah.
After Daughters of the Dragon came out, it was it wasn't a huge series because it was digital only, so it wasn't exactly setting the world on fire, but it was a book that was quite relatively popular in editorial. So editors liked it. Nick, who was the Spider-Man editor who gave me the job, said, I really like this series. I thought it was great. We can't do another Daughters of the Dragon series because, I mean, know about the first one, but we want to spin off this Black Cat series with what's been going on in Nick Spencer's run. And I want you to take the same kind of energy, the same kind of excitement, gags and stuff, and do it with this character. So I was like, all right, shit, let's figure it out. And at that, after we got rolling, it's became my favorite character because she's just really fun to write, and the adventures are really interesting to me. Because ultimately, every story or every adventure is either stealing something or the consequences of stealing something.
Right.
So it's a fun area you don't often get to explore in superhero comics. So having that opportunity has been really great.
Yeah.
So did you go back and like read some old Black Widow or not Black Widow, Black Cat stories and like kind of get a feel for her character?
Yeah, I mean, I went back and read most of them.
Okay.
I mean, I've got the first appearance here.
Oh, nice.
That's on my one.
But yeah, like I went back, read from the first through. I don't think I've read every appearance of Felicia, but I've got a good gist of it. You go, you read the oldest, you read the newest, and then you start figuring out what you need to read in between.
Yeah.
Because you need to figure out where they start and where they've most recently ended off.
Yeah.
So it's always a trip too, because when the character was created, she had a much different role in comics, and she's not someone who you would expect to have her own series. She's very much a side character. She's very much, the girlfriend or the person to cause Peter's life to be even worse for various reasons. And then taking that character and like looking at all the developments over the course of her life, or her history rather, because she's been around for a long time now, and trying to distill what it is that is interesting to you as a creator, what it is you think would be interesting for the character to readers, and what you can make stories out of, and how to show this character in their own spotlight, for their solo series.
Yeah, so kind of taking her out of Spider-Man's shadow and like developing her more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the goal for the series basically is, we're like, oh, we're going to put Spider-Man in. I'm like, no, we're not going to put Spider-Man in it for as long as we can, because it's not Spider-Man presents Black Cat, or
Yeah.
Spider-Man's gal pal Black Cat. It's just Black Cat. So yeah, we held off with Spider-Man until the annual came out. So I considered that one a win.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So do you find it different from like writing these stories with the superheroes with superpowers, and then with Black Cat, who she doesn't have any special abilities like Spider-Man does or any of the other heroes, that she's just a normal person. So is it like, do you kind of write your stories differently based around that, or does it not really affect much?
It's different. Like she does have some stuff. She's got
Yeah.
retractable claws. She's got her bad luck power, which
Yeah, but
you
it's
don't
not like
do
she
you
can
don't do
shoot
a
webs and
ton
stuff.
with.
And
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's not. That's most of the characters I work with tend to be pretty low in the power scale,
Mhm.
which is something I find fun and interesting to work with because the challenges that they can face are often a lot more relatable.
Right.
Um, Whereas if I'm put in a position where I'm writing characters that are much higher up on the power level, it is something I'm not used to. I was writing Absolute Carnage Weapon Plus, and
Yeah.
so Weapon H, the giant Hulk Wolverine
Yeah.
guy. I wrote like this bus, smashes in through a wall and is coming at him. I'm like, shit, how's he gonna get out of this one? And it's like, well, he's the Hulk. He'll just grab it.
Yeah.
It's not
He'll
actually a
just
big deal.
smash
Like,
his way through.
yeah, like if this was Taskmaster or Black Cat, this would be a problem. But since you get the power of the Hulk, you're not really bothered by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you like writing more grounded street level heroes and characters.
um, I like it. I would say it's more just what I'm used to than something
Okay.
that I consider a preference at this point.
Yeah.
It's just these are the opportunities that I've been given.
Okay. So the first three issues of like the newer set of Black Cat comics were tie-ins to the big King of Black event. So
Yep.
did you like get to talk with Donny Cates or anything about like what had ideas he had, or did you just kind of get to write your own series or stories within this event?
Even more exciting, I got to talk to Donny Cates' editor. Uh, no, for things like this, like a tie-in, there's so many tie-ins for King of Black, as I'm sure
Yeah.
you're aware. So yeah, Donnie wasn't there holding everybody's hands to get him through it. But rather, I had the outline. I knew what was going
Yeah.
on, and Nick and Devin, the editors, were kind of quarterbacking the thing. By the time I got the outline, Nick had already sort of earmarked Doctor Strange as kind of a loose thread that we could maybe follow up on for our tie-in series.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean that's basically what happened. I knew what was happening. I think I read a couple scripts. I think some of the art was in at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But yeah, I just basically wrote it in, then sent it off. The editors will take a look and say, okay, this is going to work. This isn't going to work. This doesn't actually work like that. This character's dead. No, you can't dig up Flash Thompson's body.
Yeah.
And just kind of go from there.
Awesome.
That's cool.
And so one of my favorite reads that you've worked on was the Taskmaster miniseries. I really enjoyed it. And so Taskmaster is trying to prove himself innocent to Maria Hill's murder. So did you find writing a villain trying to prove himself good different from just writing a straight good hero?
Well, I mean, as a point of order, Taskmaster wasn't trying to prove himself good. He was trying to prove himself
Well,
innocent
yeah.
of this thing.
Right.
Taskmaster is certainly capable of killing Maria Hill, and it certainly wouldn't bother him. But in this case, he didn't do it, and B, he didn't get paid to do it.
Yeah.
But
That's important. He wasn't paid.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a professional. He's got a reputation. But when you're writing a villainous character, I mean, you have to make them, relatable. Like you don't have to have people like them, though. I mean, often it helps. But
Yeah.
there has to be something about them that they like to watch or like to see. A character can be, a coward and a bully and a jerk, but as long as it's interesting to see them and see what they do and see what they get up to, or in this case, see what they think, then you've got that reader buy-in. I'm not particularly interested in the adventures of Adolf Hitler or something because It's like, yeah, this guy's just gross. Like, I don't want to see anything that he's up to.
Yeah.
But if you have, a villainous character who's compelling, who has reasons for what they do, and can tell a few jokes, then I think you're set.
Yeah. So do you like writing heroes or villains more?
It just depends on them. Like I think Taskmaster is probably one of the easiest series I've written. Like I would bang out a Taskmaster script in like a day
Oh wow.
Oh
because
wow.
for some reason it just clicked. You know,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Black Cat somebody I find very easy to write. I think I don't know if I would say hero or villain, but I think there's a certain selfishness and self-involved nature to these characters like Felicia and like Taskmaster
Hmm.
that I really enjoy working with because there's something relatable about that. They're
Yeah.
not they're not there to save everybody; they're there to save themselves,
Yeah.
and that's something that maybe we don't want to think is similar to ourselves, but still kind of is.
Yeah. It's that human nature and instinct that
Yeah.
it's like, are you going to save yourself over the other people? And those characters seem to go for themselves first. So,
Yeah, and I mean, like Felicia's certainly more heroic than Taskmaster is, but
yeah.
at the same time, she's still a thief.
Right. So when you're writing these stories, how much like communication do you have with the artist and like do you talk to them and well I'm sure you talk to them but like what's that like?
I mean, again, it depends on the artist and depends on how they like to work. I've
Okay.
worked with artists that I basically just don't talk to at all. They're like, okay, I got the script, I'm good. I'll see you in however long with some pages. Other artists are just really want to be more collaborative. Basically, my position is I just try to do whatever is easiest for the artist because they're doing much more work on this than I am. So if they want to be left alone, by all means. If they want a closer collaboration, I'm absolutely down.
Okay.
So have you ever had like a time where they like send you a page or a panel or something? It's like, oh no, I don't like that. Like, can you change that? Or have you just been like, okay, it's fine, and then go with it?
I mean, it's rare that would happen because, like I said, they generally know what they're doing more than I do. Um,
Okay.
so 9 times out of 10, oh, more than that, if I send in a script, sorry, just 1 second here. If I send in a script, I'm going to get something better back than what I was thinking because ultimately I'm a writer. I just, write these things and they bring them to life in a way that is generally more interesting and more exciting. They'll switch the art, or switch the action around, or switch, perspectives, add panels,
Yeah,
take panels away. But I mean, like there will be situations where something doesn't work. Often it's not art wise, but it's just something narrative. They say, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, it's," or maybe I forgot to include a reference. This person has this costume now instead of this costume,
Right.
or
yeah,
um, maybe don't show this amount of violence, or maybe this should be more violent, stuff like that. It's pretty rare that I really have to step in and say, "Oh, that's wrong." But it's not like this isn't good enough. You need to do better. It's more
yeah.
like I probably should have told you this before, and now I have to tell you this now.
Right. So Wes, you want to take this Magic the Gathering because I know you're a huge Magic the Gathering
Oh
fan.
yeah, yeah. So, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Magic the Gathering is your first like indie title that you've written, like
Yeah, it's my
professionally.
I guess yeah, it's my first non-Marvel book, really.
Yeah. So you're writing the Magic the Gathering series for Boom Studios, and when I first found this out, I was super excited because I'm a huge Magic fan. And
Nice.
so, what made you want to write like the Magic series?
Well, it was something that I just kind of got an email out of the blue about this time last year, maybe a little later. Um, Amanda, who was the editor on the book at the time, was looking for someone to put together this book. They just got the license.
Oh, so
I
they've
don't.
been planning this for a while then.
Oh yeah, no, we've been working on it for almost a year now, in one respect or another. Yeah, she basically said, "We're starting this thing. Do you have any interest in writing a Magic comic?" And I used to play Magic a lot when I was younger, and I've still got my cards in the other
Yeah,
room there. And it's like, yeah, I have a lot of affection for this. property. It'd be fun to get back into it, do something a little different.
Yeah, that's
and also is in the middle of COVID, so I had literally no other books going. So I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I do need some work. So yeah, it was an interesting thing because I'd been out of the game for about 20 years,
Mhm.
and uh, I went into it thinking, oh, I can catch myself up on the storylines, no problem. Turns out like a lot of stuff happened in that game in 20
Yeah.
years. So
Yeah, so that
uh,
kind of leads into my next question is, so did you like go back and read some of those stories to like catch up on the lore and stuff, or did you just jump right into writing your own kind of?
oh no, I had to do background research because again, like I was like, oh, I can bring I know Magic characters that I like, and I'm thinking of characters from like Homelands,
Yeah.
which was like I don't know, 94, 93, something like that. So things have significantly changed since then.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
thankfully, there's like really comprehensive wikis. So like
Yeah.
the various fandom wikis, I use the Marvel fandom wiki all the time for doing research for my comics,
Yeah.
and the Magic fandom wiki is great. So I just basically was diving through and seeing who these characters were,
Hmm.
what's been going on, what the planes are that people are excited about these days. Also, an old friend of mine from high school who is still plugged into Magic was a great resource.
Oh, cool.
Uh, I would run stuff by him, and he'd be like, "That's already been done. Uh, that this character is not what you think it is. The universe doesn't work this way." I'm like, "Oh shit, okay, great, got it."
yeah. So you're going to be writing this new Moonknight series, which I'm super excited about. Big Moonknight fan.
Hmm.
When were you approached with this title?
I think it would have been October, maybe September.
October.
Oh, wow.
So I think sometime in the fall. Um, yeah, I got an email saying we're looking to put together a Moon Knight series. We don't really know what we want it to look like yet, so they're just kind of asking around to a few writers, saying, well, what ideas do you have? What direction would you like to take? We have a few sort of guidelines that we want for a Moon Knight series, but other than that, show us what you got. So I was very excited about it. I really like Moon Knight, and uh, you know, you only get the opportunity to do a Moon Knight series, once, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he doesn't have a series
Yeah,
that
he's
comes
not a
around
comic
all the time.
character that's written a lot.
Yeah. So I was really psyched for it. So I just kind of went home and furiously wrote out a little Moon Knight manifesto of what I wanted to do, and went back and forth on it a few times with the editors, and then they said you can have it. Get at it. Can you get me the first script?
So how many issues have you written
Yeah.
so far?
For Moon Knight?
Yeah.
Um, I've written 4 so far, and we're starting number 5 this week.
So
Okay. And
So
issue 1 comes out June, is it? Or sometime July.
July.
Yeah.
So it's issue 1 through 4. Like you kind of like write story arcs out and then like finish that and then kind of write another story arc and then like kind of like that.
Yeah, like for Moon Knight, I outlined the first 5 issues, as well as sort of I outline them as like outlines. Like here's what happens to this issue, this issue, this issue.
Yeah.
Um, and then sort of saying, moving forward, here's what I want to do as we keep going.
Right.
As
So, yeah,
the
so
thing
is
is
this
with
going to
these,
be an ongoing title, or is it like 12 issues, that's it? Or are you just going to go for as long as you go for?
I mean, it's an ongoing, which again could mean 5 issues.
Yeah.
Could mean 10 issues. Could mean however many.
Right.
That's the vagaries of modern comic
Mhm.
book publishing. So currently, it is open ended, ongoing.
That's all.
In practice, we'll see how the sales go.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well,
I've
I've definitely heard and seen lots of people excited
Yeah.
about it, so I'm sure it's going to do well.
a lot of
Yeah,
people are talking
it
about.
the response on Twitter was much larger than anything I've been used to with my comics so far. I generally work on characters that don't have huge followings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once the Moon Knight announcement went out, I was like, I got to get away from Twitter for a bit. This is just kind of doing my head in.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
another big thing is the Disney Plus series coming out.
yeah.
So it would be awesome for people to read those books, and then watch the show too.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, if there's going to be a TV show, they're going to have a series out. It's the same with
Yeah,
Taskmaster, where Taskmaster came about because of the Black Widow movie.
Right.
yeah.
It was supposed to come out when the movie came out in April.
Well, we know how
But
that went.
Right.
exactly. So eventually they're like, we just got to put this comic out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what has been your favorite character to write so far? And if you could like choose one character to write, who would it be?
It's hard to say because I generally like all the characters I write. Like I really like Black Cat, I really like
Yeah.
Taskmaster, Daughters of the Dragon, but I like them all for different reasons. Um, I would love to see another Taskmaster series. I've got ideas for it. I think it would be a lot of fun to work with. But
Cool.
again, my answer for that is always Alpha Flight. Like I'd love to write an Alpha Flight book. But
Nice.
Well, of
man,
course.
if you wanna talk about a book that literally cannot sell, it's Alpha Flight.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no one cares about the Canadian X-Men.
Right. Yeah.
You mean the American Alpha Flight, but
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I was hanging out with Ed Brisson one time, earlier in my career, and he's like, "I'm going to give you a piece of advice, something you should know. They'll never let us write Alpha Flight, either of us." And then a couple months later, he's like, "Actually, yeah, they're doing an Alpha Flight one shot, and I think they might be calling you for it because he and Zub were doing the other two stories in it." So it's like, yes, the one Alpha Flight book to come out in like 10 years. I got one of the
Yeah.
spots in it. So I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's very validating.
Yeah. So is John Byrne then like one of your big inspirations?
Um, I probably wouldn't say so. I
Okay.
mean, I like Byrne well enough. I like his Alpha Flight stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't know how big an influence he would be on me.
Okay.
But I'm also notably bad at tracking my influences. So, could be.
Yeah. So what would be your favorite comic story you've ever read? Like your favorite comic arc ever?
Wow, that's tough. Like when you get down to favorites, I always have a lot of difficulty with that because there's so much stuff out there that I like, and it's often for so many different reasons.
Okay.
Like if I wanted to talk about my favorite stuff, like growing up when I was a kid, like probably because I grew up reading '70s comics in the '90s. We didn't buy new comics because we
Mhm.
already had comics.
Yeah.
Um, so stuff like Master of Kung Fu, Doug Munch and Paul Galassi was just like really that moody super spy martial arts stuff. And then the Roy Thomas, Barry Windsor Smith, Conan,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's classic.
which was amazing. And then like the stuff Barry Windsor Smith did in Savage Tales, I think Savage Tales 2 and 3 or Savage Tales 1 and 2, they did Red Nails, which was
Yeah.
it was amazing. It's just like that black and white, stark, ultra
Oh, yeah.
violence.
Savage Tales
And
is one of my favorite titles.
yeah, it was great. And I think in the same issue they had the pencil version of he illustrated the Robert E. Howard poem Chimeria, which was so good. So yeah, I think that's some of the stuff I always go back to
Yeah.
is that 70s stuff I came up with, and kind of like trying to trace those influences and see how much they may have influenced my own work.
Okay. So you've mostly written Marvel stuff as of now, but would you say want to write Conan stories or maybe some DC characters? Like would you ever want to do those kinds of stories too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried to write a Conan story. I got a slot on Bizarre Adventures. That was like the tribute for the Marvel 80th anniversary to the big black and white magazines like Savage Tales.
Hmm.
And Jake, the editor, was like, "Hey, you want to do a short for this?" It was like 9 pages. It's like, "Yeah, it'll be great. I'll do a Conan story." It's like he can't do a Conan story because they were just launching Jason Aaron's Conan.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
fine. So I started basically looking through those characters from those old magazines like Marvel Premiere and stuff like that. To just look for someone who's close enough to Conan that I could do a Conan story. It was like I was like Ulysses Bloodstone, fantastic. So
Yeah.
I did like Ulysses Bloodstone and did like a far ancient thing where he's fighting a Skrull in Mount Wundagore, and Yeah,
Mhm.
it was a blast. Yeah, I'd love to do Conan. Yeah, I'd be down to do DC. I've always had an Aquaman thing in my back pocket for a long time. So
Oh, nice.
who knows?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, like, do you read comics regularly? Like, with new series coming out, is there ones that you're always picking up when they're released, or?
Yeah, I mean, always finding stuff here and there. There's been some new series I'm really enjoying. Homesick Pilots I really like. Sea of Sorrows has been really great. Red Fork from TKO.
Yeah, yeah. The indies have been killing it lately.
Oh, it's been unstoppable, so good. And it's like an embarrassment of riches. So,
Yeah,
geez, what else? Tartarus has been great. Johnny Christmas.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's a good time to be reading comics, that's for sure.
Oh,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah, definitely. And lots of time to do it too.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
What are you gonna
So
do? Travel?
yeah, right. So like how would you really like trying to think how to phrase this question. Um what would you do if you could write your own indie series, create your own characters, and just start from scratch?
I mean, I can't really talk about that, can I? I'm just gonna have to do
Darn.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like there's lots of stuff I'd like to do. Like, I have ideas for comics. 'Cause, I mean, when I was younger and starting to like work in comics and like trying to, trying to be an artist and trying to write stuff, I had never intended to end up doing like a mainstream books.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm gonna be like a scrappy indie guy, and didn't really shake out that way. But I've still got a lot of ideas and stories. Some of which I look back, I'm like, oof, you ain't doing that. Others that I'm like, oh, maybe if I spruce that up, it could be something there. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm not giving away anything for free, bud.
All right.
Yeah.
um
At least you tried.
so what advice would or tips would you give to someone who wants to get into writing comics?
Um, have a backup.
Have a back.
I mean, here's the thing: like getting to a point where you're writing comics professionally as a living is a long shot.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah. It's like a side
until
hustle thing.
yeah, I mean, and like I don't want to be dismissive or discourage anybody or break their dreams, but the real the reality of the situation is it's not an easy thing to get into,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and a lot of it is just kind of being lucky, kind of like being at the right place at the right time. Um, I did my first Marvel work in 2010. I did not think I would actually have a career as a full-time writer until last year.
Oh,
oh
Like
wow.
I was still teaching high school and writing comics on the side up till like November of 2019.
oh, okay. Wow.
Okay.
And because I was like, well, I can't count on this. I can't trust this. Maybe the bottom's just going to fall out of it. I need to have a guaranteed revenue stream. I need to have dental insurance.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
So, but that said, like if you want to write, you got to write.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've heard
It's
that a lot. People like saying just do it. Like just put
Yeah.
something down on paper and
Yeah, absolutely. Like I, I've always wanted to write and always wanted to tell stories. And after I kind of decided, like, you know what, this comic thing isn't working out for me. I'm just gonna write a novel. Try that out. And so like I would talk about it all the time to people. I'm like, yeah, I'm working on a novel. I'm going to write a novel. And I ran into a friend I hadn't seen for about a year. And he's like, oh yeah, the novel you were talking about last year. How's that going? I'm like, oh, I'm still planning it. And in my head, I was like, yeah, I'm still planning. I didn't actually write anything. It was a real kind of like it was a wake up call because it's a lot of fun to shoot your mouth off and call yourself a writer, but if you're not writing anything,
yeah,
then what are you referring to?
Right.
yeah,
So, uh, so yeah, I wrote that novel. No one wanted to publish it. That's fine. It's still something I learned a lot doing.
Right.
yeah.
Um, then a few years ago, some friends from school, we started like a writing club here in Halifax, and so there's four of us. We'd meet once a month, and we just read a story that we wrote, and that was huge for me because I
Cool.
refused to go to writing club without a complete story. So every
Oh.
month I'd write, you know, a 2 to 10,000 word story
Wow.
that, you know, had a
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and end, because I refused to turn up with, sorry, 1 second. All right, well, it's being weird, but can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I refused to turn up with an incomplete story, and that taught me how to, you know, write to a deadline. It taught me how to write in a serial fashion to get something done, to get something complete every month. Maybe I wasn't 100% happy with it. Maybe it wasn't what I wanted it to be by the time that deadline rolled around, but it was done, and it was a complete product, you know?
Yeah.
So
Mm.
the website you contacted me through, that's where I would put
Yeah.
them. You know, almost all the stories on that website were written for Writing Club.
Oh, okay.
And again, having it on the website, no one read them, no one reads them, but it's
But at
still
least
something
they're out
that
there.
and at least they're done.
Yeah.
Like I'll take a story that I'm not 100% happy with over a story that I haven't written any day, you know.
Yeah.
So
Something's better than nothing.
yeah. So like ultimately, yes, you may not become a professional comics writer. Yes, you may not work on your favorite characters, you know, from Marvel or DC if that's what you want. But the one thing that you can guarantee is that you can write as long as you have access to something with a keyboard and, you know, some form of memory, or, you know, a pen and paper. You can always write.
Yeah.
So while you're trying to get into that position, you have no excuse not to try to make yourself better.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome advice.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah.
No problem. I guess I was I got your email and I was like, oh, okay, let's do that. It's like, what's your channel? And you're like, oh, here it is. It's like I really admire these you know, these guys' confidence where they have one video that's 6 minutes long. I'm like, all right, now let's just start emailing pros.
Oh yeah. So we actually we actually made another channel, but then we forgot we made that channel and then we forgot the first.
Yeah.
We actually do have a channel. It's called Future Specs, and yeah. Oh
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
yeah, we've been doing this for a little bit.
Yeah, there's been some troubles for a little bit, but we got it figured out.
Now we're going, and I was so excited when Wes, you know, he said, "Hey, we're getting Jed Mackay on." I'm like, "Really?" Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, awesome.
Oh no, like I said, I'm happy to do it. It's always fun to talk comic books, and it's nice that you guys are on your hustle, getting your show going. So
Yeah.
good luck.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.